Hello, everybody, and welcome to the MedEvac Podcast. I'm your host, Christian Meyers, joined by our other host today, David Reid.
Hello, everybody.
Before we hop into today's episode, please keep in mind, if you get something out of today's episode, share it with a friend or family member. It means a lot to us, and it does a lot for the community. Our guest today is Tim Horton. Welcome, Tim. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you for
How
having
many
me.
times have you gotten Horton Here's Who, by the way?
All the time.
Or every single day.
Or Tim Horton's coffee.
Yeah, Tim Hortons is a coffee shop. Right?
Coffee shop.
It's also a coffee
But
shop.
we shall not mention that.
Yeah, no barista talk here.
No
Right.
barista.
Our Black Rifle Coffee producers are looking at us in disdain. Anyways.
2 thumbs down from Trey.
Tim was a Marine mortarman from 2004 to 2006. Sustained a few injuries in Afghanistan.
Just
and
a
Iraq.
few, by the way.
Just a couple.
Couple.
He got jumped up and bit in the buttocks with some shrapnel.
Ooh, $1 million wound. Have you seen a penny of that $1 million?
No.
Not quite yet. Classic Forrest Gump. But now Tim is the alumni manager with Wounded Warrior Project. He does a lot of interfacing with wounded individuals here in the South Texas region.
Especially Brooke Army Medical Center.
BAMC, yes.
Yes.
Which is where pretty much everyone on the Army and Air Force side.
Either Walter Reid or Brooke Army Medical Center for the most part. So
Walter Reed's more Navy, right?
Any type of injury like amputation or anything like that, you have a primary is Walter Reid to go to. I opted specifically for Brooke Army Medical Center.
That makes sense.
Because I love Texas, but
Tejas.
that's just...
Didn't have the option, so I went to Walter Reid.
Did you?
Yeah.
Not at the time. Yeah, Brooke Army wasn't really built up yet. So
Yeah, it was a few years before.
So they took me right to Walter Reid.
Okay, well, we'll dive into that. Well, we got to start with how you decided that the military was your lifestyle. So what prompted that? As a kid, sense of service, free college. We've heard it all.
Judge order.
Yeah.
Didn't want to go to college. Really didn't want to go to college and had that sense of service. My mom and dad were both Marines.
Okay.
So they were both Marines. Thought that may be the challenge for me. I wanted a physical, mental challenge, and I think I got it.
How was that, being under the household of 2 Marines?
It's pretty strict.
Did you wake up to reveille every morning?
No, it wasn't that bad because they were already out by the time I was born. So it was, it was fun. My dad actually ended up being a pastor, believe it or not.
Really?
No religion, sorry.
No.
It's,
We just don't want to hear your opinion on religion.
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, religion exists.
You were like, no religion. And then I'm like,
Oh, yeah, no.
okay.
Objectively acknowledge it. Yes, of course.
We're just not going to preach on the show, is the only thing. But so your dad was a pastor. So going from a Marine to a pastor, that's maybe a balanced childhood, or?
And his option in the Marine Corps was go to jail or go to the Marine Corps. So that kind of changed the course of his life.
Okay. So you didn't have those options.
No.
It was,
Thank God.
It was college or the Marines, and you decided that was it for you.
Yep.
And so you made your way down to the Marine recruiter, didn't get swooped up by the Air Force. That's impressive.
No.
And how did you choose the job you wanted to do?
I don't remember if it was much of an option. It was like, I want to go infantry. And then just kind of the school I went to was just, hey, you're going to be a mortarman. All right. Sounds cool.
Mm-hmm.
Shooting rounds a long distance. Sounds fun.
Yeah.
So you were pretty open to whatever job you ended up landing?
Yeah, I knew I wanted to be on the front lines in some way. So that was just kind of, I don't know. I always had that sense of service and wanting to do something more than, I didn't have a family, right out of high school. So no ties. So I could do whatever.
And this was 2003 that you enlisted?
Yep.
So just after 9/11, I mean, the invasion's happening at this time, and you're still driving forward. You still want to go and be on the front lines.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
What was the general feeling that you had as far as the population went? Did it have an overwhelming patriotic feel to it? Were you ready to go get the bad guys who took down the towers? Or was it just, something that you've always wanted to do? You were going to do that regardless of 9/11?
I think it was regardless of 9/11, I was going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But 9/11, I was a junior in high school, so I think that pushed me a little bit more towards it, more than I would have been. to defend this country and our freedoms. So that was just a big motivating factor in me getting there.
That makes sense. So you, how long until you ship off to boot camp? And then what was your experience like going through training? Anything that stands out?
So looking back, if I could have done it again, I would have joined straight out of high school. I did the delayed entry program, so that was about 6 months.
Okay.
So worked at a lumber yard for a while, which was probably one of my most fun times.
Mm-hmm.
It was working a forklift, loading trucks. It was a good time, but looking back, I probably would have joined right out of high school instead of waiting because it did nothing for me, really.
2 years, 3 years?
It was just like 6 months.
Oh, okay.
6 months. So I went, I was joined in October.
Okay.
So graduated in May. So I had a little time in between there.
And went in with that invincible Marine mentality right in 2000.
I'm not sure about that as far as invincible. Maybe after stuff happened, I was more so like that. But I always played sports, super competitive in everything I did. I'm always been small, so I've always looked at obstacles as a challenge, and I loved it. So that's what I looked at the Marine Corps as, a challenge.
Okay.
You're 5'6", you're 100 pounds soaking wet. You can't do this. Well, I'll prove you that I can.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I have time and time again. So
yeah. So boot was pretty straightforward. No crazy stories. You made it successfully through.
Yeah. No, not really any crazy stories.
And then how long until you deployed for the first time?
So I went in October 2003, graduated in January of 2004, it would have been, and then deployed in September of 2004. So I had a workup before that deployment, some training in 29 Palms. Great place, by the way. It's supposed to simulate Iraq, but it's pretty much just a desert.
Yeah.
But we had some cool trainings out there, a lot of hiking and stuff to prepare. So I felt pretty well prepared, but I don't know if anybody's ever really prepared for what's about to happen.
Yeah.
So
especially not in that time frame.
Yeah.
2003, no one knew what to expect. 2004, same thing.
Yeah.
And if they did have expectations, they were way outdated.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you find yourself deploying to Afghanistan?
Iraq
for the first time in 2003. So right at the height of everybody trying to figure out sandbags on...
sandbags, a lot of sandbags.
Yeah. So
welding armor.
How's your experience off the bird there?
It was good. It was pretty quiet the first couple of weeks getting there, just getting used to. The base didn't have much. We had to build a lot of things up.
Mm-hmm. Where were you operating out of?
So it's called Combat Outpost.
Mm-hmm. They just didn't even have cool guy names yet.
No, it was not at the... That was Outpost. The first base, which...
So it was Cop 1.
First fob you had. But there wasn't much there. You didn't get to take a shower for a while. On a deployment, you're not really worried about showering, but it would be nice every once in a while to take a shower. But just really taking over for 2-4, who was there before us and really got banged up. Or combat inefficient, where they had so many casualties that, they had replacements coming in. So that was a little hairy to think about.
Yeah, that's got to be kind of a psyche kick, right?
Oh, absolutely.
A little bit. Get into your head, start painting the picture. And so at that point, you're probably just like, I'm just going to trust my superiors, keep my head down and try to execute whatever they give me.
Absolutely. I was just doing what I was told, trying to stay alive, really.
And how'd that deployment fare for you?
I think the deployment was good. The mission over there at the time for us was Hearts and Minds. Mm-hmm. So we were part of the first elections over there, 2004. So we actually set up election polls for the Iraqi people to come vote.
Okay.
So took over some houses.
What were your thoughts on that?
I thought it was a good thing in my mind is, hey, we're doing something for these people. And most people in the news and everywhere don't see it that way, but they weren't there. So
they weren't there.
We were trying to help people. We're giving the kids, school supplies, soccer balls, candy. We did a lot of good, I feel like. And I mean, I felt pretty good about that deployment until I got banged up. But
Was that the same deployment?
yeah, that was my first deployment and my last deployment.
Any hairy situations before that really got you prepped for that? Or was it just like, that's it, boom?
So, there's plenty of those where we're just, doing foot patrols and you see somebody poke around a corner and in your mind, like, hey, something's going to happen. They poke around the second time, here comes an RPG, take off running. And so that hit one of the Marines that we were with. I think he lost a finger, had some shrapnel. But yeah, quite a few RPGs, mortars. We got what's called general quarters on our first base.
Okay.
So we're getting attacked. So everybody's out ready. Like, this is the end. Pretty much in your mind, you're like, this is how it ends.
So like a full base attack.
Yeah, everybody's out. Everybody's got their weapons out, up on the post. Like they call general quarters, and everybody's out trying to, we got the gun trucks out, all that stuff. Very small base, by the way.
So it just felt like they were lurking at every moment around the corner.
Yeah, like you didn't know when something was going to happen, but you knew
I think that's an important concept for our audience to realize too, is that, safety is not implicit. It is not implied, especially on a base that is just being established for the first time. You're in a austere environment that's going to kick your butt around any corner.
Yeah. And you're not safe sleeping in your own bed at night.
No.
You go back to your room and it's still just as dangerous because they're lobbing mortars at you.
Rocket attacks daily.
From the moment the sun goes down until the sun comes back up, it's nothing but mortars.
And the balls that they have as well. I remember I was on base and there's 2 pickup trucks that are driving around this thing. There's people in the back that are lobbing these freaking mortars on base, just outside. 2 little birds spin up and just do a little gun run real quick, clean it right up. But like the balls, do you not know that that's going to happen?
Like, hey, we have Apaches and little birds, dude. Like, might want to rethink this one.
My goodness. Yeah. And they used to freeze the rounds, right? Do you remember that one? They'd freeze the rounds and when they thawed out, they'd shoot off.
Yeah.
And it's like, the weapon that I'm trained in, I'm going to die to, as a mortarman, because I was trained in that. And then you're like, that's what we're getting
That's an interesting
beat up by.
That's an interesting thought.
In my head. And God, I would have hated it, You hear the stories about somebody on a porta shitter.
I've seen it happen.
And it's just horrific.
There was
our main mortarman got hit by a mortar and blown in half.
That's such dark irony, dude.
And that's what I said. I remember just sitting and seeing this and just thinking, I felt kind of bad about that thought too. It was just like, that's fucking ironic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
By definition.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just rough, man. But that's got to be going on in your mind all the time. As you're lobbing them, they're lobbing them back at you.
Which we didn't really get to lob a lot, honestly, because we had counterbat with the Armory. So they got the 120s and I was trained to do 60s and 81s. So I got to shoot a few Illum rounds, just to illuminate the sky at night and from an 81. But that's all I got to do as far as my MOS.
So you had to carry that bitch?
No, I didn't.
Oh, thank
No, I didn't.
Tubes around everywhere.
No, never did.
Yeah, I felt bad for those guys that would.
But yeah, so I really didn't do that overseas, as far as being a mortarman.
Yeah.
I was an infantryman on the ground, either foot patrols, mobile patrols, or observation posts. That's what I did, my rotation.
And primarily focused on the hearts and minds aspect. Time.
Yeah. And just
go ahead.
Making sure nobody's putting in IEDs, nobody's doing anything shady,
Do you feel like the general public there was receptive to the type of work that you were doing?
I think a lot of them were, but they were also scared at the same time because they knew if we came by, well,
it's dangerous for them.
Yeah, it's dangerous for them. So they could potentially get in trouble if, hey, they talked to the Marines. You shouldn't talk to the Marines or the Army or whoever it was. They could get in trouble.
Yeah.
Or it's like a mark on their door now.
Absolutely.
They know that somebody's been here.
Yeah.
I'm sure your perception of your role was very different going into it as opposed to actually executing, right? Hearts and minds is probably not what you thought a Marine was going to be doing.
Absolutely not. Didn't think that would ever be. No, like humanitarian effort really is what you think about it. I mean, obviously there was more to it than that, clearing out the bad guys and all that. But there was, in my mind, it's a good, good mission. We're helping people.
Yeah.
To vote.
Yeah.
Have the right to vote.
Exactly.
To be
for their own government and all that. So
take control of their government and their country, to get their country back, basically.
Yep.
Yeah. So it seems like obviously an honest perception and the honest type of work, I would suppose you'd say.
Yeah.
But I hear stories that they go back and forth that a lot of people were apprehensive to commit to that or be willing to accept the help from Americans in that aspect because it did increase the amount of danger or it did highlight their family as somebody who's willing to help the Americans out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Is that a perception that you had? Obviously, you were pretty young at the time. You're 21, you said?
19, 20.
Yeah, 19 or 20.
Yeah.
So you're pretty young. Do you have that perception at the time or are you just going along with?
No, I did have that perception that like if we went in there, there may be a target on these people's back. And so you think about, I don't think you think about it at the time, but looking back, I look at it and go, oh man, we might have put some of these families in danger by, we were trying to help them in our minds, but, we might have put them in danger by visiting their house or kicking them out of their house because we had to use it as a observation post or something like that, which you don't want to kick people out of their house, but if you need it for oversight, that's what you got to do.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the mission's got to get done.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting concept too, because I always try to bring it back home and put it in perspective for people. Is can you imagine if SWAT came to your house, kicked down the door, zip tied your ass, put you in a freaking room, and then they're like, I'm going to keep this for Overwatch.
Yeah. Come back in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Or whatever it may be.
Back in 3 weeks.
I think we gave them some stuff. I remember us giving them something, but at the same time, you're kicking them out of their home. Yeah. So that's a lot.
Here's a glow stick.
Like who would be happy about that?
Yeah. Yeah. No one's going to be happy about it. But war is war, right?
Absolutely.
But that is an interesting topic. Is a perspective shift. Is safety is implied here in this country.
Yes.
No one could do that. That is against the rules. Until it's not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think a lot of the public in the US, honestly, I think they get carried away with their expectations of safety in everyday life. And a lot of people don't realize that around the world, like many people are fighting for their lives daily just to survive.
Absolutely.
And not necessarily fighting with other people, but I mean, they have to walk 5 miles to get clean water or, go hunt for their own food. Like that is a necessity that they fall into. Like a lot of Americans just have that implicit safety and it makes them complacent.
Entitlement as well. There's a sense.
I think people take a lot of things for granted. You see that a lot.
Everything for granted.
Everything. And so for me, my perspective is always looking back, like think about somebody that's deployed right now and not getting a shower or getting hot coffee or getting all this stuff that we often, all of us do. We take it for granted. Like, hey, this is nice to have this, but put your mind back to that time where you were over there and like,
you have to experience it to put it in that kind of perspective though. And
it's true.
No one's doing it. I mean, like you could, everything that you take for granted, right? I mean, just getting up in the middle of the night for a glass of water, you know what I mean? In your situation as well. It's things that you don't think about unless you put yourself in someone else's shoes who's been through that situation. Talking at a restaurant. In the military, they don't even let you talk when you eat.
Yeah, true.
You know what I mean? So it's little things like that. But that's the experience that, helps you get through your injury. And I'm sure we'll get to that. So can we walk through like how that day went for you?
Well, it was, waking up that day, we were going to be on mobile patrol. I'm usually the rear vehicle, so I'm the first one out. And then my gun is, letting everybody pass by. So I think it was probably about 8 that morning. Rode out, and this is when we're actually on a built-up installation, but there's only a couple ways out.
Okay.
So it's kind of the same path every day, which looking back is not very smart.
Yeah. Poor tactics.
Yeah. But that's the only way you can go.
Yeah.
So go out. I'm providing security. Our first gun truck goes by. Boom. IED. So the IED goes off. It actually hits a civilian vehicle. It almost looks like a vehicle-borne IED because it blows up right underneath the engine of the Iraqi, whoever's driving that vehicle.
Okay.
But it also hits our first gun truck a little bit. So everybody's like,
This was remote detonated?
That one, yeah.
Yeah.
So they're like, everybody's getting out, freaking out, like, what do we do? What do we do? Let's assess the situation. Everybody's looking. I had 5 people in my vehicle that day, me, the A driver, the gunner, and then 2 in the back.
Mm-hmm.
Those 2 in the back got out after that first IED. So they're going to help out, assess the situation. I got out for a minute, and then my A driver, who was in charge of me, he said, get back in. I get back in, and he says, back up, back up, back up, back up. We don't have mirrors on the Humvee, so I'm backing up, but I'm looking back. Doors open.
Oh.
Doors behind me are open because they just got out. The guys behind me just got out. So I'm backing up, and then all of a sudden, the IED went off on me on my vehicle. So
Wow.
So from there, it's pretty blurry.
Yeah.
But I do remember a few things about it, like, hey, my buddy in the turret got hit pretty bad. His legs were just tore apart by shrapnel and stuff. So me and him got medevaced. The good thing is, looking back, is we were close to base.
Yeah, you weren't too far.
So, and there was already quite a few people out, so they could get a vehicle out there. Got us out in a vehicle, and then took us, I believe, to Vlad, the green zone at the time.
You said Falad?
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe. I don't know.
So it was fast. Like,
it was
fast.
Yeah.
And I think if it wasn't fast, then yeah, I probably wouldn't have survived.
How were you medevaced? Or do you recall?
Via convoy?
Yeah, it was a Humvee. I was in a Humvee.
Okay.
So I know, like, our corpsman was trying to work on me and was like, where's your dog tags? I'm like, I don't know. It's my left boot that's blown apart.
Mm-hmm.
In my boot, hopefully, if it's there. And like, I never wore them around my neck because I hated wearing those around my neck. And they always get
combat.
They always gave you the silencer, the little black silencer that the heat would melt it. So it's like, I'm not using that. So he's asking me some questions, assessing the damage. And then, I remember getting on the helicopter or whatever, to get medevaced. And the last thing that my buddy who was in the gun truck, he was from Missouri. He was country as fuck. Like, always had a large amount of Copenhagen in his mouth. And I believe the joke was after that Copenhagen was everywhere. Like, but he's like, you're going to be all right, man. And I fell asleep and I was out.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember waking up in Landstuhl, Germany. Mm-hmm. So that was my first, I'm alive,
Yeah.
And then I'm kind of assessing, like, my body, and I'm looking at these, what I call cheese blocks. They were foam blocks holding my arms together. Huge. Couldn't really see my leg at the time. Couldn't see anything on my face. But I believe I was there for a couple days until they got me stabilized.
And you sustained a pretty severe eye injury as well. So it was probably just a huge blur.
Yeah. And my eye they had one of those patches over it for, I don't know, it was months.
Oh, wow.
So I never even really knew if I still had an eye. I didn't know anything like that. So
was this in Landstuhl? Was it the first time you were assessing your body?
Yeah.
So you had no idea of the injuries that you sustained before that?
I had no idea. There was a Marine staff sergeant that called my parents who lived in Kansas at the time, and just, gave them that quick, hey, your son's seriously wounded. He's got shrapnel to the head, neck, face, leg, and buttocks. And that's what they got.
That's all they told him.
That's all they got. And I think they told him that I was in Germany.
Okay.
And hopefully getting
It's like 10%.
yeah, hopefully getting transported in the next couple days. And I'm not sure how many days it was, but I want to say I made it to Walter Reed maybe February 11th, 9th.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple days in between there.
Mm-hmm.
I do remember that ride from Germany to Walter Reed though.
In that bird,
Wait,
the medevac bird?
yes.
Did you have to pee?
I had to pee, but I was in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
And I just remember like, give me more medicine.
Yeah.
And you're stacked up.
It's
in
so
those-
uncomfortable. And
Oh, it's so
at the
uncomfortable.
time, they're just bodies stacked on top
Yeah.
of each other. It was completely packed.
In the like C-17, nose to tail.
Completely, not very comfortable.
3-4 bunks high.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. And you can't like there is a nurse that's walking around and you can't really do anything. It's
Yeah.
just like everybody else is screaming like
Yeah,
mad.
everybody's screaming.
Everybody's got to pee.
Yep.
But you can't move. You
No.
can't get out. Like you can't get out of it.
You can't.
Well, they keep an IV in you the whole time, I imagine. They're keeping.
Oh, I didn't allow them to give me a catheter.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't. I was like, if you fucking come near me with that thing.
That's hilarious.
I told a surgeon once before I was getting an emergency appendectomy. He's like, well, I have to put a catheter in right after you go to sleep. I remember telling him, just joking around, like, well, at least you don't have to push it very far. He started laughing. The anesthesiologist just got so pissed.
Pissed?
Yeah, military doctors, like, they don't like jokes, apparently. I thought it was hilarious.
That is pretty
like,
funny.
You know, high as shit on Dilaudid and morphine,
Yep.
about to go into surgery.
That's crazy, man. So
Anyways,
you get to your 17 to Walter Reed. It's an uncomfortable journey.
Absolutely.
And then like what's going on in your head? This whole 18-hour plane ride.
I'm in a lot of pain and I don't want to be here. So, I mean, that was, because I remember just being awake and going, man, this is super painful. I don't think I was quite aware still of what was going on, honestly, because you're on so many drugs and stuff. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, uncomfortable trip.
And you get to Walter Reed, and how's your experience like coming off that bird?
Wasn't too bad.
No.
Wasn't too bad.
Were you greeted by anyone or?
So my parents came a couple days after I got there and just...
And their reaction to more than just a buttocks wound.
Yeah. I mean, I don't remember them being too crazy. I'm sure they were, but, and my little brother was, I want to say, he would have been a junior at the time. Senior. It was his senior year of high school.
You should enlist. That's when I thought about Marines.
Absolutely. Well, I was like, finish the job, but he actually did.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh, he did.
Crazy. He joined and he went to Iraq and Afghanistan as a Marine as well. He was a mortarman. So,
Oh, wow.
Carried on the legacy.
yeah, he carried it on. So
Done.
everybody in my immediate family, except for my older brother, was in the Marines. So,
Man. So your parents came out to support you. That's amazing. Your brother too.
yep.
And talk to me about those initial stages for your journey to recovery.
I think there was just a lot of not knowing. So I still had my leg. Like I said, my eye just had a patch over it. So I didn't know what the extent of that. Could see like my arms and stuff, like they were, shrapnel and stuff, pins and stuff in them, but really didn't know the extent of my wounds.
Yeah.
My leg was wrapped up. I had an external fixator on it for, I want to say 3 or 4 weeks.
Okay.
So I could move my foot.
So when did they come?
Really?
So it was, so they kept on doing, washouts every other day.
Yeah.
So that's why I've had a lot of surgeries. It's just because they're
Mhm.
cleaning my leg out,
Yeah.
trying to save it. Or they're like, there's too much damage and it's infected.
Oh,
Like you could walk in the room and my family could like smell it.
Mhm.
wow.
They don't, at least that during that time, they didn't do a good job of cleaning me up because I was still dirty by the time I got to Walter Reed. Like I just looked dirty.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I'm surprised. They just left you in the bed filthy?
Yeah. I was filthy.
Yeah, it's only to life save until you can get back
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
So life save,
I mean, that
back
is
home.
So I was pretty filthy.
right there.
Not to mention just, shrapnel and stuff looks dirty.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was like, one day they just had to tell my family, they're like, hey, if we don't amputate, he's going to die. So, all right, let's amputate. Let's make this happen. So, I mean, waking up one day with a leg and the next day it's gone, like a big ball of something wrapped up, and you go, what? I'm 20 years old.
Yeah.
What am I doing the rest of my life? All these thoughts come in your head, and I'm like, the only amputee I ever saw in my life was, I think it was in my uncle, and he had a hook for a hand.
Yeah, and that's got to be a scary vision.
And I'm like, okay, I'm going to be like my uncle, who all I really know him for is he smokes pipe tobacco. So here's my life, 20 years old. I'm going to be sitting in a chair smoking pipe tobacco. You don't know.
I mean,
you don't have any idea.
Those thoughts are just screaming at you at every moment. I've told this guy 1,000 times, and probably everybody on this that's listened to the show is. I remember just breaking down in the hospital one day, just crying because I wasn't able to get my girlfriend at the time water at night. You know what I mean? Like it's just all these thoughts go through your head, and it's everything and anything. So I get that.
It's a big fall too, that from an ego point of view to a personal point of view, right? I mean, you were operating at the highest levels in the world, part of one of the most deadly military machines to ever exist, the Marine Corps, United States Marines. You're at a certain level and you're out on the front lines doing these operations. And when you wake up, everything's changed.
Yeah.
So coming to terms with that and accepting that, especially at 20 years old, I mean, it's really difficult to come to terms with, I would imagine.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think I don't know if you can ever fully prepare for that, but from my upbringing and my parents, how they raised me, like never quit, all that stuff, that was in me from a young age. Yeah. So I think that helped me mentally. But like you said, just coming to terms with it. I'm not a big crier. I'm not. Just never been. But I cried and said, all right.
Yeah.
All right. What's next?
You go from being high-speed Marine.
Yeah. You're like, I could beat anybody in this 3-mile race or whatever. I can do this many pull-ups and
5'6",
like nobody could beat me at this. Like feeling that you're like Captain America or somebody,
unstoppable.
Like, and then you go to like lying in a bed and you can't even care for yourself.
And another big part of that is that you go from being a much needed member of a team to all of a sudden being on the outside of it and like knowing where your path was going, being deployments and everything's rotation structured and accountability for everything, to all of a sudden, now I don't have a leg. Now I'm not in physical shape at all. And now I'm outside of this team.
Yeah.
That it's heartbreaking. It really is. So a lot of people can't recover from that.
Absolutely.
So that having that no quit mentality sets you aside from the rest too. And I'm sure you get asked the question quite often is, how did you make it through all of that?
For me, I think just my wanting to get back to life, and in my mind, I was going back. That was my goal. It didn't happen that way, but because there's a few doubts in my mind, the technology, all those things. And at that time,
are you a burden?
Yeah. Am I going to hurt somebody else? 2005, 2006, there weren't a lot of amputees staying in.
Yeah.
It was early. Technology wasn't quite there. It was all right. But
prior to the war,
it wasn't great.
They were still doing wooden legs.
Yeah.
Most people don't know. 20 years ago, they were still doing wooden legs.
It's crazy. That's crazy. Yes.
In 2002.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the technology, had, since it was such a predominant issue, technology just skyrocketed. And, every year still.
Yes.
To this day,
still.
Something new's coming out.
It's came a long way.
So you learn that lesson 20 years later, 10 years later, whatever the case may be. But you don't know that.
No.
The day one. You don't know. So that's what I always say when someone says like, how did you make it through? I always say day by day. Like
Yes.
I just tackled the tasks that I had. Some of those were moment by moment. Like it was just like getting through the next hour. Center for the Intrepid had these like core days. I remember everybody, all these like just broken individuals are just strewn out across the floor doing sit-ups and stuff for a half hour. And you're just like, God, I'm going to die. But after those accomplishments, you get to look back on it and say, wow, I can't believe I've done that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you have had multiple hurdles like that.
Yeah. Going in the hospital for me, I lost a ton of weight. Well, like most people do.
Mm-hmm.
I went from about 160 to 110.
Yeah.
So extreme weight loss. I wasn't able to eat a lot. Some of the surgeries, I'm throwing up all the time, So it's not comfortable per se, but also just getting extremely weak and then starting back to like 2 pound weights and
that
going
was the worst.
Oh,
Starting
2 pound dumbbells or 5 pound dumbbells and just like
pressing.
and I'm trying to do pull-ups and I'm like, I'm a Marine. I do 20 pull-ups, no problem.
Yeah.
Not when you're 110 pounds and no strength.
Yeah.
That's a soul crusher, man. That crushes your soul.
Yeah. And having your parents have to feed you.
Yeah.
Get bathed by somebody else. I don't mind if it's a good looking nurse, but let's be honest.
Me, I'm the opposite. I'm like, I want 2 nurses, the good looking nurse that only sees me at my best. The bad looking nurse that wipes my ass.
Yeah, exactly. That way, yeah. But it truly is like a humbling experience. Like you going through all that early on in your life, like, oh man, I never want to have to do this again.
But it sets you up. There's so many lessons to be learned. And it really showcases your character for who you are, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, that is a tough situation. So you walked through your injury. You finally, the doctors, I'm assuming, told you what was going on at this point. Yeah. You mentioned that earlier before the show that your eye was probably the most painful of the injuries that you had. So what happened there? Like, what was your exposure to that? What was your feeling then? I mean, your face, it's a different story. It's a different topic.
So that was kind of like hey, we're going to take care of everything else first. Mm-hmm. And my eye was just covered up. So I didn't even know. My dad literally said, I can see, stuff inside your head because there was just a hole. But yeah, the doctors weren't even looking at it yet because it was like, you broke all these bones, you're missing your leg. Mm-hmm. So that was like an afterthought. So an ophthalmologist tried to take skin from the back of my ear, make a flap. Well, that didn't work. There wasn't enough skin. Mm-hmm. So there's a plastic surgeon there it was actually Bethesda, when Bethesda and Walter Reid were separate at the time.
Yeah.
So most of my surgeries were done at Bethesda and then I'd go to Walter Reid for like physical therapy, occupational therapy. But there was a doctor there, Dr. Kumar, by the way. Harold and Kumar. But I always think it's funny. But he was the best. He was in the Navy, and that guy, he worked probably 20 hours a day. Operating on soldiers, Marines, everybody coming in. Never complained. Was always happy. So he did some stuff on my leg. He decided, hey, I'm going to make this. We're going to do extra skin. So I had a skin flap. Trust me, it was horrible. It looked like a finger.
A skin flap. So where was this?
So the flap was like this and it just was, so they left that for a long time. So that's why I had so many surgeries because they put extra skin. There's way too much skin.
So they put it in between your eyebrows?
So it looked like this. So this is all.
So you're underneath your bottom left eye.
So it like held right here.
Okay. So it was like the whole bottom left eyelid up to the bridge of the nose?
Yeah.
Wow.
So the skin graft was like this hanging. So, imagine people looking at your face and going, what happened to your face? Yeah. I got that all the time, man. And that was, how did
that make you feel?
Oh, I didn't like it at first. It's just like, well, I got blown up.
Yeah.
This is what war looks like in a sense, But yeah, I had, and it probably in total, probably 8 surgeries, but it wasn't until like maybe 2010 was the last one.
Okay.
So start the process in 2005. So it was like a 5-year process of constantly going in, and it was called debulking. So they're debulking the skin on the graft.
Okay.
So it slowly, came from the finger. Then it was just bulky like this, but it looked like somebody had socked me in the eye. And, the first thing people look at is your eyes.
Yeah.
Most of the time. They're looking at your eyes. So they're like,
eyes are up here, Tim.
I know, exactly. What happened there? So, for me, it was, it was hard.
Yeah.
I wasn't very confident for a while. But I think about so many other people, somebody that's a burn survivor goes through that.
Yeah, but that's a dangerous game all in itself. As an injured individual, not to compare yourself to other people.
Yeah.
But
you do.
And you do, but it really just devalues yourself and what you're going through as well.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. The face, the tape.
Yeah, right in the face. Got it in the face. So, that was a challenge for me for a while, is just getting over that. Like, and obviously being a new amputee, you're not confident enough yet to be like, I don't really care. It took me a little while to be confident, but after a while, it's like, I don't care.
And you just don't notice as much.
Yeah, then you're like, it's just second nature.
When that ID blast went off, you mentioned how it happened to your eye. I just want you to tell the audience.
So
the glasses.
The force of the blast put my Wiley X glasses.
Oh no.
Which I don't know if you guys are a fan, but
you should reach out to them if you haven't already.
But
I was sponsored by them.
So I will say, saved my eye. My eyelid, gone. It saved my eye though.
Okay.
So it was like the sunglasses with the foam pads, little foam pads.
Yeah.
Because, if you guys ever wore those Oakley goggles that were just complete shit, and the heat just wore them out in like a week or two, and they're
dust.
So I was wearing those that day. One of my staff sergeants, he found the glasses like 50 yards down the road, and he found them, and
it had your eyeball on it.
No, my eyeball. He's
got both eyeballs, guys. It was a joke.
My eyeball's still here. Actually, for a while, I joked that I said I'm missing my eye, and it worked several times with people. People thought, because they looked at my eye because it was damaged, and they're like, "Hey, are you missing your eye?" I'm like, "No, I'm not."
Technology. Yeah, this is a robotic eyeball.
Yeah, exactly.
Taking pictures right now.
Has X-ray vision.
So lens went through my eyelid, and it was gone.
That's rough.
So
it's a good thing that your eye was saved, though. That's,
a joke though was I don't produce tears, because I said I'm not a crier. I honestly don't produce tears on this one because I don't have that capability anymore.
So
I always said my joke is I lost my tear ducts in Iraq.
Yeah.
I lost my ability to cry.
I love that one.
Yes.
I've said that one before too.
Yeah.
And, being of science background, I said it once and they were like, well, actually tear ducts is where your the liquid drains. And I was like, fuck you. That is a good one though. So talk to me about your...
hit the button.
Your actual...
No worries.
Uh-oh, we got a phone.
It'll just
going off.
Through is all.
No worries. So talk to me about your actual physical therapy that you were going through and relearning how to walk on your prosthetic.
I would say, so my physical therapist, he liked to eat and he liked food. So I kind of had to make my own stuff up, to be honest. And at the time...
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, put those, what do you call them, bungee cords on me, and I'm going to run with you. Like I would make different things up because he was a physical therapist, been there for years. He's probably still there.
Not.
He didn't push me, but I found some physical therapists in there that would push me. Like I want to do more than just the basic stuff.
Yeah.
What was it? Roll on the mat for a while, do this, and I'm like, I want to do a little bit more, like to push myself to get to the level. So
there's a difference in, combat related injuries. And that's what makes the Center for the Intrepid so incredible, right? Yeah. Is those physical therapists who come in are used to those people who want to push themselves exponentially. And then you go to like, Brooke Army Medical or, Bethesda, and they're dealing with veterans on the most day to day before that. And that's so early in the war too.
Yeah, I don't think they even knew what to do at the time. So it's like, hey, let's roll you out. But I did find a captain in the Army. He was a PT. He was a Marine before, so
you guys got along.
He was very fit and he wanted to work hard. So I was like, hey, okay, dude, can you do this for me? Like, I want you to push me hard. So I'm like completely exhausted at the end of this, and I want to get out of here as soon as I can because I don't want to stay here.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wanted to stay. So, you're up walking after injury. It was probably 2 months after my stuff had healed enough to put a prosthetic on, and you're like, oh, this ain't that bad. I mean, it hurts like hell, when you first step in the leg, but hey, it's not that bad. I've got my knee to walk and all that stuff, and, slowly move to running and all that, and then start getting into more activities. So, and then a lot of the physical therapy stuff, I've just go in, work out. Stuff that we already knew in the military or had done previously, like in sports, like I'm going to work out to get in a better place.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a crazy one though. That physical therapy was something that we all didn't want to do every day, but it was such a requirement.
Yep. And I had occupational therapy too. So with my hands and stuff, getting functionality back in my hands and stuff like that. So, I mean, the guy that did my occupational therapy is still there today. He's actually one of the founders of Wounded Warrior Project. So,
oh, wow. Is that how you?
But so he was one of the first people that said, hey, you're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a bike ride in Key West, Florida. So I'm Walter Reid. Want to get you out of the hospital.
Ride.
Yeah.
We want to get you out of the hospital. Ride a bike. I'm like, Harvey, I got one leg, dude. I don't have a prosthetic yet. I had just had a revision on my leg.
Mm-hmm.
How do you ride a bike with one leg, an upright bike? It's like, you just clip in. I'm like, all right, I'm in. So I clipped in and it's like, well, it's not that bad. You can ride with one leg. Yeah. So figured it out. That kind of got me out, and, different activities got me out, and seeing other people like, oh, this Marine's missing 2 legs, or this soldier's missing 3 limbs. You see all that and you're like, all right, I got to push myself a little bit harder.
Mm-hmm.
They are, so why am I not, So make it a little bit of competition, but yeah.
So that was your first exposure to Wounded Warrior Project?
Well, first exposure was in the hospital bed, and they delivered backpack.
Yeah.
Which
Juan
is
Arredondo?
No.
Was it him at the time?
No, because he was in San Antonio at the time. Okay. He was.
Yeah, that's right.
That's funny. Because actually, he was injured the same month, same year as me. Okay. But he came to San Antonio when I was Walter Reid, so we never met until we worked together, like 2011. So,
wow,
he's a fantastic guy.
He is. I just talked to him not too long ago.
One arm.
Yeah, he will tell you.
One arm. Yeah.
Yes.
One arm. So talk to us about your journey into Wounded Warrior Project.
So I would say for me, they helped me a lot when I was in the hospital, and some of my worst times. Like, really, they said, here's a backpack. There's a CD player in at the time. CDs were cool back then. I had one CD, I think, over in Iraq that was probably a burned copy. It was Evanescence. Still love
Hell yeah.
Still love Evanescence today.
Absolutely.
Actually got to see her in concert in San Antonio at the Sunken Garden, and amazing. But there was, I listened to one CD my whole time over there. But then when I was in the hospital, I listened to that because I had a CD player now that Wounded Warrior Project gave me. And I actually had clothes that I could wear and feel like normal again.
Not the New Balance dad shoes they gave you? Like, first of all,
I have some of those. I remember getting those too.
They gave me
I still like New Balance to this day, by the way.
When I got those shoes, I was like, first of all, there's 50% shoe here that I don't need.
It's like, you got a lot of socks in here. I only need one.
Yeah.
So
Is there any righties in the hallway? Like anyone need a
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well,
I do that sometimes now with my buddies. Like, hey, I'll take the right if you take the left.
Oh, that's funny.
I just need one sock.
Just one sock. That's
Yeah.
the way to do it. Some captain, I was on base one day, he comes up to me and he's like, why do you wear a sock on that foot? And I looked at him and I go, why do you wear socks? He couldn't answer it. He's like, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know why we wear a sock.
Because I just do.
I wasn't expecting a follow-up.
It gets cold sometimes.
So what do you do for Wounded Warrior Project?
So really my job is really presenting our programs
Mm-hmm.
to the public, to potential alumni, as we call them, as once you sign up, your alumni and family support members. But really raising awareness, not only for our resources, but resources in the community. Like my biggest thing is I want a veteran to be successful after injury, illness, whatever it may be. Like find your new passion and purpose. Because that's, once you leave the military, you're like, that's all I know.
Yeah.
Well, find what's next in your life. And that's for people that have worked 20 years, they have a hard time.
It's hard to
Even some people that were 4 or 5 years and just like
combat wounded sets you in a different mentality. On its own.
You got to move forward. And we have so many benefits, not only through us, but other organizations. Like the last probably 11 years of my life have been dedicated to finding out those resources, like in the community across the country. I honestly don't care if you come to Wounded Warrior Project if that's not the right fit for you.
Yeah.
If there's something else, I'm going to find it. So really just educating the public, visiting patients in the hospital, taking care of them like I was taken care of, making sure their families don't have, there's a gap in between the military and kind of taking care of families, So I've helped families come from Thailand to San Antonio because they had a family member that had cancer and was dying. So kind of bridging the gap.
Yeah.
But also, getting involved in some different efforts in the community. So working as a community to help people, not siloing the services we have. So a lot of people aren't familiar, but we grant organizations that do things outside of what we do. This past year was $5.8 million to 28 different organizations that are doing great things outside of what we're doing, like taking care of.
Because no one could do everything.
Absolutely.
We actually just had this.
There is not one size fits all for a veteran. They come out and
literally that was the terminology used too. It's not one size fits all.
There's nothing.
You need to have those niche markets that are able to attack directly some of these issues. And it's great. But Wounded Warrior Project has always been kind of the 911, I feel like, for a lot, especially during the early stages, right? You called Wounded Warrior Project if you had a girlfriend that was out of state and you wanted to get these guys to visit you because the military only purchases family tickets, and stuff like that. So incredible organization. And I think it's very intricate in everybody's journey in the very first stages because no matter who you are, you get that backpack.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And they come around and usually it's someone such as yourself who's experienced something like that. Mm-hmm. The biggest thing for me when I was in the hospital wasn't the generals and everybody who came gave a coin or whatever like that. It was the guy that had the backpack that had a missing leg. And I was like, hey, bro, do you mind if I pick your brain for a couple minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, mentoring people through that process. Like I remember crazy. There was a guy that came in, he was in full uniform. I'm like, what are you doing here, dude? Who are you? Oh, I'm active duty. I lost my leg. I'm still in the Marine Corps. So like seeing those people come in that have already gone through it.
Most inspiring.
Oh yeah. And you're like, I can get there.
Yeah.
I can get there. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So you love what you do.
I do.
Yeah.
I get to help people every day.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. What else is another amazing part of Wounded Warrior Project that you've helped implement or drive?
I don't know if I can say that.
Top secret.
We'll edit it in post.
I mean, I just being part of some of the different things that we've pushed forward as an organization with other organizations, like legislative stuff. I don't know if we can I say that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like the PACT Act, which was recently.
Yeah, you're definitely able to showcase some of the amazing changes that have been.
And then for me during my TSGLI, Traumatic Service Members Group Life Insurance, that was a huge thing that the organization pushed, and it's helped thousands of people with a lot of money.
Yeah.
Because of the seriousness of their wounds and stuff, to help them financially and kind of set them up.
Can you explain TSGLI a little bit? Because I know there's a lot of people who don't even know.
So, Traumatic Service Members Group Life Insurance. So really this was put in place. We all sign up for the Service Members Group Life Insurance, which is up to $400,000, or it was at the time. So this is really to help those that have lost limbs, organs, have been in hospitals for 15 to 30 days. Really, it's kind of to supplement income. So it's up to $100,000 for different injuries.
And the qualifiers?
Loss of limb was definitely one. Activities of daily living for a certain amount of time. I want to say hospital stays of like 30 days or more.
I think it's greater than 30 days.
Greater than 30 days.
And then if you need assistance for 3 or more primary tasks throughout your day.
So like the ADLs.
Prescription fix, groceries.
But they'll supplement your income. So say if you're an active duty service member, you sustain a head injury and you're in a coma for 35 days, well, your family is not, they're receiving your paycheck at that same time, but there's a lot more going on in the background. So the military will give you a little stipend of cash in order to help cover those costs and any additional costs you might run into.
So
some great benefits out there that no one hears.
Oh, no.
No one hears it.
And we try to educate people on that stuff for sure. But that was big to me because it came out when I was in the hospital. I'm going through this and what? What is this?
That was something Wounded Warrior helped stand up?
Yeah. There was actually 2 guys that one of them lost his legs above the knee. His name was Heath Calhoun. He was actually, he did Paralympic monoskiing.
Oh, damn.
And then
those things look so freaking dangerous.
And then the other guy was Ryan Kelly, and he was below the knee.
Yeah.
And I think Heath was talking to Ryan one day, and he said, "Man, my family would be better off if I died because they would have got the $400,000." So that was what kind of sparked. And then some of our leaders in the organization at the time were like, "All right, you guys need to tell this story, and we need to go push this." And so that really sparked that. Hey,
that's amazing.
And if you think about all the costs that families incur while one of their family members is in the hospital, I mean, if there weren't all these different nonprofits helping out, they would be paying.
There's a lot of people that don't understand that.
Thousands and thousands of dollars.
Are coming and spending a month or two away from their jobs, pulling kids out of school.
Yeah.
There is so many things, and it's great to have organizations out there that can help facilitate being at peace a little bit while you're doing your recovery.
Absolutely. Because really focus on whoever that is in your family to get better. But then they have to start focusing on themselves too, to take care of themselves, because a lot of families neglect themselves as they're taking care of, their loved one. So that self-care is really important.
Yeah.
I think, so my last question would be, and I know the answer to this, but I want everybody else to hear this, is do you think that helping other people through Wounded Warrior Project help you on your journey to recovery?
I would say absolutely. It helped me. It's therapeutic to me to help somebody else and tell them, hey, maybe don't do this because I did it. I tried this. It didn't work. It is my opinion, but I can tell you a lot of things that I went through and made the wrong decisions. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Go this way first.
It's outstanding being a mentor.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's incredible. Well, Tim, it's been fabulous having you on the show. Is there anything that you'd like to tell the audience? Where to find you? Any direct messages?
No, I've You can find me in San Antonio, most likely in my office.
Instagram?
No Instagram.
Okay.
No Facebook. I am on LinkedIn.
Okay.
You can find me in my office, or you can find me at my home. I live in Bernie, so
Okay.
come visit me.
Tim Horton, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep. Thanks for being on the show today, Tim. You're a truly inspirational person. Seriously, watching people who have gone through so much and continue to give back, it's inspiring for all of us. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you guys for having me. Appreciate
Absolutely,
it.
brother. That's great.
This has been the MedEvac Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you next week. Bye.
See you, everybody.